Alistair Finch traced the faint, almost imperceptible discoloration on the stone wall of the 7th floor corridor. Most students would have dismissed it as age, or perhaps a clumsy spell cast long ago. But Alistair saw it as a breath held, a shift in the castle's ancient metabolism. He tapped a finger against the rough surface. Imperceptible, yes, but for a trained eye, a minuscule deviation from the uniform texture of the surrounding blocks. It was a tell, a secret. His mind palace, a vast, intricately constructed mental edifice, instantly absorbed the data point. Inside the soaring halls of his internal construct, a perfect, three-dimensional representation of Hogwarts shimmered into being, meticulously rendered down to every loose flagstone and peeling portrait. He mentally zoomed in on the 7th floor, grafting the new observation onto the existing framework. The faint mark suggested a section of wall that had once been a doorway, or perhaps still was. He cross-referenced it with an old architectural sketch he'd managed to conjure from a forgotten library tome, not a magical summoning, but a memory, perfected, of the faint illustration of a medieval archway. This was his world. The intellectual pursuit of knowing, mapping, understanding. While other 6th years worried about OWLs, Hogsmeade dates, or the mounting fear of Voldemort's return, Alistair saw Hogwarts as the grandest, most complex puzzle ever devised. He catalogued its shifting staircases, its vanishing cabinets, the subtle hum of magic in certain areas, the patterns of student movement, even the habits of Peeves. Each piece of information was a variable, filed away in his mind palace, allowing him to predict, to navigate, to know. He was a Ravenclaw, of course, brilliant in a way that often alienated him. His upbringing by an eccentric, reclusive academic uncle had honed his mind into a precision instrument, but left his emotional landscape largely unmapped. Feelings were messy, illogical variables that defied elegant solutions. Chaos, in all its forms, was anathema to him. And yet, chaos was precisely what seemed to be slowly, inexorably, creeping into the very foundations of Hogwarts. The change had been gradual but unmistakable since the previous summer. Whispers in the Great Hall, hushed tones among the staff, the constant, low thrum of apprehension that had replaced the castle's usual joyful din aurors had made unannounced patrols, their faces grim. Dumbledore, though ever calm, had an aura of weary vigilance. The light-hearted pranks of the younger students seemed muted, overshadowed by the palpable threat from beyond the castle walls. It bothered Alistair. Not emotionally, he didn't fear it in the way others did, but as an unwelcome perturbation, an uncontrolled variable disrupting the orderly elegance of his intellectual domain. He liked his puzzles solvable, his systems predictable. The encroaching war was neither. Just yesterday, during charms, Professor Flitwick had abruptly cut short a lesson on defensive charms, his usual cheer replaced by a strained urgency as he drilled them on basic shielding spells. The message was clear: prepare. For what? Alistair wasn't entirely sure, but his mind palace had begun to reconfigure its emergency protocols, mapping evacuation routes, potential secure zones, and choke points. Just in case. Lost in his mental cartography, Alistair almost missed the small, unadorned note that materialized in his hand. It was simply a single word, penned in an elegant, looping script: office. No signature, but none was needed. Only one person in the castle wrote like that, and only one person could summon him with such understated authority. Dumbledore. Alistair's intellectual curiosity, always a potent force, instantly eclipsed his ongoing spatial analysis. A summons from the headmaster was not a common occurrence for a student like him, who mostly kept to himself. What could Dumbledore possibly want? He catalogued the possibilities, discarding the trivial, disciplinary issue. Unlikely, and the outlandish, head boy? Preposterous. The most probable explanation circled back to the war, to the pervasive unease. Dumbledore was a strategist, and Alistair, for all his aloofness, knew his own worth. Perhaps Dumbledore had finally noticed the potential of his unique skill. He navigated the familiar corridors with an almost preternatural awareness, his senses heightened. He wasn't just walking, he was observing. The portrait of Sir Cadogan seemed to eye him with unusual scrutiny from its perch, a shift in its painted gaze he duly noted. The weight of the castle felt different tonight, more watchful, more ancient. Each creak of the floorboards, each distant echo, fed into his burgeoning understanding of Hogwarts as a living entity, now bracing itself for a coming storm. The gargoyle guarding Dumbledore's office swung aside at his approach, revealing the spiral staircase. He ascended, a slight tremor of anticipation stirring within him, a rare sensation he categorized as novel challenge approaching. Dumbledore's office was, as always, a fascinating clutter of whirring silver instruments, ancient tomes, and the silent, watchful eyes of former headmasters in their portraits. The soft glow of the evening sun through the tall windows cast long shadows, giving the room an air of serene solemnity. Dumbledore himself sat behind his magnificent desk, his long, silver beard resting on his chest, his half-moon spectacles perched on his nose as he regarded Alistair with an unreadable, yet piercing, gaze. Fawkes, the phoenix, watched from his perch, a silent, fiery sentinel. "Alistair," Dumbledore said, his voice a low, melodious hum that seemed to resonate with the very magic of the castle. "Thank you for coming." "Headmaster," Alistair replied, his voice habitually precise, devoid of warmth. He noted Dumbledore's posture, relaxed, yet with a subtle tension in the set of his shoulders. A man carrying a great weight. "Lemon drop," Dumbledore offered, extending a crystal dish. "No, thank you, Headmaster," Alistair declined, suppressing a faint urge to catalog the brand and sugar content. Dumbledore merely nodded, taking one himself. "I have been observing you, Alistair, for some time now." Alistair felt a prickle of surprise. He was meticulous in his inconspicuousness. "Indeed, Headmaster?" "Indeed. Your unique methodology for understanding the castle has not gone unnoticed. You possess an extraordinary mind, Alistair. One that sees patterns where others see only chaos and pathways where others see only walls." Dumbledore leaned forward slightly, his eyes twinkling, yet holding a profound seriousness. "The Mind Palace, I believe it is called?" Alistair stiffened slightly. This was unexpected. How could Dumbledore, a wizard steeped in the arcane, know of such a thoroughly Muggle technique? "It is, Headmaster. A mnemonic system, nothing more." He emphasized Muggle, a subtle challenge to Dumbledore's understanding. "Nothing more." Dumbledore chuckled softly. "My dear boy, some of the most potent weapons in existence are nothing more than a particular arrangement of matter or a unique capacity of the human spirit. Your Mind Palace, Alistair, is a testament to the latter. You have taken a Muggle technique and elevated it to an art, perhaps even a science. You don't just remember, you comprehend." Alistair felt a rare spark of pride, quickly suppressed. He disliked overt praise, finding it a distraction from pure intellectual pursuit. "I merely apply logic to spatial data, Headmaster. And in doing so, you have mapped Hogwarts more thoroughly than any other living soul, perhaps even more than its founders ever truly intended in its ever-shifting state." Dumbledore paused, his gaze softening yet intensifying. "Which brings me to why I have summoned you. The war, Alistair, is no longer merely a distant thunder. It is at our gates. Voldemort's forces are growing bolder, more desperate. Hogwarts, for all its enchantments, is not impervious. We have reason to believe that Death Eaters are seeking, and indeed, finding, new ways to infiltrate the castle, to sow discord and fear, to compromise its security." Alistair felt a familiar surge of frustration. Infiltration routes were an elegant problem, but the purpose of the infiltration was ugly. Standard wards should prevent that, Headmaster. Standard wards are designed for standard threats, Dumbledore countered gently. Voldemort does not fight by standard rules. His followers are relentless, cunning, and often quite mad. We need eyes where they do not expect them. We need a mind that can see beyond the obvious, predict the unpredictable, and chart the unseen. He fixed Alistair with an unwavering stare. "I need you, Alistair, to use your Mind Palace, your unique gift, to map these incursions. To identify their routes, their weaknesses, their potential targets. But more than that, I need you to identify secure escape paths for students, for staff, for vital information. To understand Hogwarts as a strategic stronghold, not merely a puzzle. The headmaster's words hit Alistair with an unexpected force. The puzzle was no longer abstract. It was tangible, urgent, weighted with lives. The intellectual challenge was immense, the greatest he had ever faced. But the emotional stakes, the responsibility, were something entirely new, something he hadn't accounted for in his carefully constructed intellectual world. He saw the castle in his mind's eye, its walls no longer just inert stone, but a complex organism, now vulnerable, now needing his precise, logical protection. "You are asking me to become a strategic asset, Headmaster?" Alistair asked, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. He was an observer, an analyst, not a participant. "I am asking you to protect your home, Alistair," Dumbledore corrected, his voice firm but kind. "And in doing so, to join a cause far greater than any individual intellect. This is not merely an exercise in logic. It is a matter of courage, of loyalty, of safeguarding innocence against unimaginable darkness." Alistair looked around the office, at the twinkling silver instruments, at Fawkes, at Dumbledore's knowing eyes. He considered the growing chaos outside, the unsettling sense of vulnerability he had felt in the corridors. He could retreat, immerse himself further in the abstract world of his mind palace, ignore the messy reality of war. Or he could engage, apply his intellect to the very problem that threatened his orderly existence. The puzzle was immense, terrifying in its implications, but also undeniably compelling. It was the ultimate test. His intellect, in its pure, unadulterated form, reached out, grasping at the challenge. It was a chance to prove his superiority, yes, but also a chance to bring order to chaos. He took a deep breath, the subtle scent of old parchment and magic filling his lungs. "I will do it, Headmaster," Alistair said, his voice steadier than he felt. The words were a quiet declaration, a reluctant embrace of a world beyond pure logic. He had always viewed Hogwarts as a grand, solvable puzzle. Now, it was clear it was also a shield. And he, Alistair Finch, the detached Ravenclaw, was being asked to become its architect. The weight of that realization settled upon him, cold and heavy, yet exhilarating in its profound demand. His mind palace, usually a sanctuary of pure thought, now felt like a battleground. The real work, the true test, had just begun. The scent of old parchment and latent magic was Alistair's constant companion, a comforting anchor in the shifting sea of Hogwarts. He sat cross-legged atop a forgotten landing in the North Tower, a precisely chosen vantage point that afforded him an unobstructed mental line of sight to a segment of his mind palace, specifically, the newly expanded Incursion Watch wing. His eyes, usually sharp and inquisitive, were distant, unfocused on the crumbling stone around him. Within the vast, perfectly catalogued halls of his mind, Alistair meticulously charted the latest anomalies. Since Dumbledore's quiet recruitment, every shadow that stretched too long, every faint magical signature out of place, every subtly altered patrol route was logged. He'd observed the Carrows, Alecto with her sneering disdain, Amicus with his brutish efficiency, and their loyalist minions, tightening their grip on the castle. His mind palace, a construct of infinite detail, now pulsed with new data points. A minor warding charm on the third-floor corridor, usually humming with benign protective magic, now carried a faint, almost imperceptible residue of dark magic. A scouting charm, perhaps? The movement patterns of students, which he'd previously mapped for optimal navigation, were now overlaid with a new, disturbing layer: potential targets. A surge of frustration, cold and clinical, ran through him. Humans, with their unpredictable emotions and illogical choices, introduced far too many variables. He mentally spun a holographic projection of the castle's 5th floor. Just yesterday, a rarely used broom closet near the charms classroom had shown signs of recent disuse, dust disturbed, a faint lingering odor of something acrid, not quite ash, not quite magic. His mind palace calculated the most probable routes, cross-referenced with recent student detentions and Professor Carrow known schedules. A pattern began to coalesce, intricate and disturbing. You're quite focused today, Alistair. Are the Raxperts particularly bothersome in this tower? The voice, light and airy, sliced through his concentration like a feather-light charm. Alistair's eyes snapped open, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face before he smoothed it away. Luna Lovegood stood at the bottom of the spiral staircase, her radish earrings swaying gently. She wore a bright yellow cardigan over her robes, clashing gloriously with the muted stone around them. Luna, he acknowledged, his tone clipped. I was engaged in a rather complex mental exercise. She drifted up the stairs, her large, dreamy eyes observing him without judgment. I gathered. Your forehead was practically vibrating with effort. Are you mapping the castle again? It's getting rather restless, isn't it? Alistair raised an eyebrow. Restless? The castle is an inanimate structure, Luna. Its physical properties are fixed, save for the occasional shifting staircase. What do you mean by restless? Luna tilted her head. Oh, it's not physical restlessness, Alistair. It's more a sense of unease. Like when the crumplehorn snorkax migrate and the air just tingles with their journey. The castle feels like it's holding its breath, especially around the forbidden corridor on the 3rd floor. Alistair scoffed, a soft, dismissive sound. The forbidden corridor has been sealed for centuries, and the concept of a tingling atmosphere lacks empirical evidence. My observations indicate increased warding signatures near the West Wing and a consistent, albeit minor, breach in patrol routes on the 5th. Those are tangible facts. But perhaps the feeling is the precursor to the facts, Alistair, Luna suggested gently, unperturbed by his academic dismissal. Sometimes the things you can't quite measure are the most important. Like the way fear ripples through the air before a storm. He sighed, pushing himself to his feet. Fear is an emotional response, Luna. Useful for predictive behavioral models, perhaps, but hardly a reliable indicator of structural vulnerabilities or infiltration routes. I operate on data, not intuition. Luna simply smiled, a serene, knowing expression. And sometimes, Alistair, the data points forget to account for the hearts of people, or the feelings of a very old castle. He chose to ignore her philosophical musings. He had a new set of data to cross-reference. The broom closet observation. He needed to verify the lingering scent. It was subtle, almost too subtle, but his mind palace had flagged it as an outlier. If you'll excuse me, he said, already mentally sketching the fastest route to the 5th floor. He left Luna standing alone in the tower, her radish earrings shimmering faintly in the sparse light, her gaze thoughtful as she watched him stride away. Alistair moved through the castle with an almost preternatural efficiency. Every corridor, every portrait, every trick step was known to him. He was a phantom, his mind palace guiding him with unerring precision. He reached the 5th floor, his destination the innocuous broom closet. The scent was still there, fainter now, but present. A bitter, metallic tang underlying the usual cleaning potion smells. It reminded him of something, a memory nudging at the edges of his recall. He opened the closet door. Nothing. Just brooms, mops, and a stack of worn buckets. But his mind palace buzzed. The slight indentation on the floor almost too shallow to notice. The way the dust had settled in uneven layers. It wasn't just disuse. It was recent use, followed by a hasty attempt to cover tracks. He knelt, examining the floor. He activated his mind palace's trace analysis subroutine. He zoomed in mentally, reconstructing the event. Something had been dragged, then wiped. Suddenly, a student's voice, muffled but urgent, echoed from down the corridor. Are you sure it's safe? Professor Carrow said we'd be rewarded. Alistair froze, pressing himself against the wall beside the closet. His breath hitched. A Slytherin voice, smooth and confident. And then another, younger, hesitant. She promised it would help me with my transfiguration grades. He opened his mind palace to its fullest extent. The mental map of the 5th floor exploded into vivid clarity. He overlaid the voices, pinpointing their location. Near a tapestry, just around the corner. Not an official classroom. A private meeting? A trap. The broom closet. The metallic scent. Not a breach. A bait. Something to lure him or someone into investigating. The true threat was elsewhere. His mind palace, working at a speed that verged on painful, began to reevaluate. It wasn't about infiltration. It was about recruitment or intimidation. Carrow methods. The broom closet was a red herring. The breach in patrol routes, not an oversight, but a deliberate gap. A window of opportunity for them to operate unnoticed. The pieces clicked into place with a sickening thud. The younger, hesitant voice belonged to a second-year Ravenclaw named Alara. Her academic performance had recently faltered, a detail Alistair had logged as part of his general student behavior patterns, but dismissed as irrelevant to security. Irrelevant. A cold dread began to seep into his purely logical mind. Luna's words echoed. Sometimes the things you can't quite measure are the most important. Like the way fear ripples through the air. Alara was afraid, and Carrow was exploiting that. His mind palace projected the most likely scenario, Alecto Carrow using flattery and promises to coerce vulnerable students into spying, or worse, into participating in dark rituals. The forbidden corridor Luna had mentioned earlier. Was it just a feeling, or did it subtly hint at the kind of dark magic Carrow might be involved in? No, that was illogical. But the connection, the darkness Luna perceived. Alistair pushed through the mental fatigue. He had to act. He couldn't just log this. Not when a student was being manipulated. He had to move fast before Alara was fully ensnared. He needed to disrupt the meeting, but without revealing himself or Dumbledore's network. He knew a minor charm, designed by an inventive 7th year, to cause a temporary, localized magical surge, enough to create a diversion, but not enough to draw serious attention from the professors. It wouldn't harm anyone, but it would certainly interrupt a delicate conversation. His mind palace, already stretched thin, raced to calculate the precise trajectory, the optimal moment. He pictured the layout behind the tapestry, a small, dusty alcove. Perfect. He moved silently, his footsteps absorbed by the ancient stone. He was approaching the corner when he heard the Slytherin's voice again, closer now, a low murmur of insidious suggestion. And Professor Carrow said you have such potential, Alara. Just a simple oath, a promise to help us identify those, disloyal to the New Order. A few names, perhaps, of students who speak against the Dark Lord. Alistair felt a jolt, not of logic, but of something else. Fury. A cold, quiet rage at the thought of a child being corrupted. This wasn't a puzzle to solve, it was a life to protect. His breathing became shallow, his concentration sharpening to a dangerous point. He rounded the corner just enough to glimpse them. The Slytherin, a tall 7th year named Malton, stood over a terrified Alara, who clutched her Transfiguration textbook like a shield. Now, Alistair flicked his wand, a precise, almost invisible movement, aiming just behind Malton. A sudden, violent shudder tore through the air. The tapestry behind Malton ripped from its ancient fastenings, showering both students in dust and loose threads. A cacophony of creaking and groaning echoed from the surrounding stone, as if the castle itself was protesting. The lights in the corridor flickered wildly, threatening to plunge them into darkness. Malton yelped, stumbling back, his composure dissolving. Alara screamed, dropping her book and shrinking against the wall. What in Merlin's name was that? Malton cried, scrambling to his feet, eyes wide and darting. This whole place is falling apart. The momentary chaos was Alistair's cue. He melted back into the shadows, his presence completely unnoticed. He heard Malton drag Alara away, muttering about reporting a structural collapse to Professor Carrow. He leaned against a cold wall, his entire body trembling with the aftershocks of the mental strain and the raw adrenaline. His mind palace felt like it had been run through a grinder, every circuit sizzling. The calculations had been precise, the timing impeccable, but the stakes. The sheer, visceral stakes. Alara was safe, for now. But the cost to his mental faculties had been immense. He felt a profound weariness settle into his bones. And then, surprisingly, a ripple of something else. Gratitude? To Luna. Her abstract restlessness and prickly feeling had, in some inexplicable way, prepared him. He hadn't understood why, but the feeling had been accurate. It was unsettling. Alistair pushed himself off the wall, his gaze sweeping the now quiet corridor. The tapestry lay in a dusty heap. The light flickered back to normal. No lingering magic. Clean. But the incident had rattled him in a way no purely intellectual challenge ever had. He had averted a crisis, yes. But it was only a small skirmish in a much larger, dirtier war. And Alecto Carrow would not be pleased. He had disrupted one of her schemes. She would redouble her efforts. Alistair knew, with a chilling certainty that went beyond mere logic, that his mind palace was about to become less a quiet sanctuary of order and more a frantic war room. And the next puzzle might demand more than just his intellect. It might demand a part of him he didn't even know existed. The Great Hall, usually a bastion of boisterous chatter, hung thick with a silence that tasted of ash. Alistair, meticulously dissecting the fluctuating patterns of the enchanted ceiling's weather simulation, currently a bleak, drizzling gray, felt the hum of anxiety radiating from the students around him. It was a chaotic, unwelcome resonance that interfered with his internal calculations. Then Professor McGonagall's voice, tight with a strained urgency, cut through the quiet. "Students, I regret to inform you that Professor Vector, our arithmancy instructor, has been detained." A collective gasp, then a ripple of hushed whispers. Professor Vector. Not just a teacher, but a quiet, dependable presence. Alistair had never interacted with her beyond classroom pleasantries, yet her disappearance registered as a critical data point. Vector, a precise, logical mind, had been a crucial node in Dumbledore's network, discreetly relaying information on student movements and potential threats. To lose her was to lose a key piece of the puzzle. He watched the faces around him, the fear in the younger years, the grim understanding in the older ones. Luna, across the Ravenclaw table, had a peculiar, distant sadness in her eyes, not quite focused on the immediate news, but on something deeper, perhaps the echo of despair. Her usual light, airy aura seemed muted, like a moth's wings dipped in ink. Alistair felt a familiar tightening in his chest, a sensation he always attributed to the inefficient surge of adrenaline in response to an unexpected variable. His mind, however, was already racing. Detained. By whom? Carrow, undoubtedly. Where? Azkaban was the usual destination for perceived traitors, but Vector's detention had been sudden, clandestine. There was a window, a brief, dangerous opportunity. Later that afternoon, a note, delivered by a house elf with nervous twitches, summoned Alistair to Dumbledore's office. The gargoyle swung aside before he even spoke the password, a rare breach of protocol that underscored the gravity of the situation. Dumbledore sat behind his desk, looking older, his eyes a little dimmer, though their depth remained undiminished. "Alistair, thank you for coming." His voice was soft, but carried a new, heavy undertone. "As you know, Professor Vector has been taken. Our intelligence suggests she has not yet been transferred to Azkaban. Alecto Carrow is prolonging the process for reasons we can only speculate, though I fear they are not kind." Alistair felt a cold not form in his stomach. "Torture," he stated, his voice flat. He had processed the probability. Carrow thrived on fear and intimidation. Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Indeed. Which means time is of the essence. Our attempts to locate her through conventional means have failed. Carrow has bolstered her wards, reconfigured old passages, and altered existing ones. The castle, in her hands, is becoming a labyrinth of malevolence." He leaned forward, his blue eyes piercing. "This is where your unique gift comes into play, Alistair. Your mind palace, your unparalleled ability to map the castle, to predict its shifts, to identify patterns where others see only chaos. It is our only hope of finding her before it is too late. I need you to find her. Pinpoint her location within these walls." Alistair swallowed. The task was clear, but the weight of it was far heavier than any previous mapping exercise. This wasn't about escape routes or supply lines. It was about a person. A person whose screams might even now echo through hidden chambers. He secluded himself in an unused classroom on the 7th floor, one he knew Carrow patrols rarely bothered with, thanks to its proximity to a particularly aggressive poltergeist. The room was dusty, filled with forgotten quills and decaying textbooks. He pulled a chair to the center, closed his eyes, and began to build. His mind palace bloomed around him, a magnificent, intricate construct of pure thought. The familiar oak of the Great Hall, the rough stone of the dungeons, the dizzying spiral of the grand staircase, all materialized with perfect, crystalline clarity. He started with the baseline, the Hogwarts he knew, meticulously catalogued over years. Then he overlaid the anomalies, the changes observed since Carrow arrival, the blocked corridors, the new patrol routes, the subtly rewarded statues. The task felt different this time. Instead of building outward, he was digging inward, searching for a specific point, a singular breach in the castle's logical flow. Where would Carrow keep someone she wanted to interrogate? Not a public dungeon. Too much risk of discovery. Not an easily accessible classroom. Too many eyes. It had to be somewhere isolated, somewhere forgotten, yet still within the castle's bounds. He began to factor in Carrow known proclivities. Sadistic, meticulous, obsessed with control. She wouldn't just throw Vector into any old broom closet. She would want a place that enhanced her power, a place where the victim would feel utterly helpless. His mind palace began to shift, reorganizing itself, sections of it blurring and reforming as he tested hypotheses. He walked the spectral corridors, pushing through walls that were once solid, flowing through secret passages that now seemed to lead nowhere. He imagined Carrow movements, her typical routes, her blind spots. He pictured her face, twisted with malice, and tried to deduce her choice of a prison. The mental strain was immense. The castle wasn't cooperating as easily today. It felt resistant, its magic reacting to Carrow's dark influence, making the normal flow of its architecture less predictable. It was like trying to map a river that was suddenly full of eddies and whirlpools, each one threatening to pull him under. He found himself running into dead ends, sections of the castle that simply didn't exist in his current model, or passages that had been warped beyond recognition. He opened his eyes for a moment, gasping, feeling the phantom ache of effort behind his temples. He needed a different angle. That evening, he found Luna by the Black Lake, skipping stones. She turned as he approached, her expression thoughtful. "The Nargles are particularly agitated today," she observed, her voice a gentle murmur against the crisp air. "They dislike cruelty." "Luna, have you noticed anything unusual, structurally, about the castle recently?" Alistair asked, trying to keep his tone neutral, not to reveal his desperation. "Any new areas, perhaps, or places that feel wrong?" She tilted her head, her gaze drifting towards the darker shadows of the forbidden forest. "Oh, the castle has been weeping. It sheds tears in forgotten places. Like when the pipes weep in the girls' lavatory, but bigger. Deeper. Sometimes, a part of the castle sighs and folds in on itself, creating new wrinkles. I think I heard a particularly distressed sigh from near the old Transfiguration classroom, in the lowest sub-basements." Alistair's heart gave a sudden, hard thud. Lowest sub-basements. He had dismissed that area. Too prone to flooding, too structurally unstable to be a permanent holding cell. But a new wrinkle. Carrow wouldn't care for structural integrity as much as she would for isolation and intimidation. He thanked Luna, a little too abruptly, and hurried back to his classroom. This was it. A new data point, entirely unquantifiable, yet somehow profoundly insightful. Luna's intuition, often maddeningly vague, had once again provided the missing piece. He plunged back into his mind palace, reconstructing the lowest sub-basements. They were largely uncharted, even for him, a chaotic tangle of ancient plumbing, root systems, and bedrock. He started with the sigh Luna mentioned, near the old Transfiguration classroom. He visualized the stone weeping, the walls shifting, collapsing inward to form a new pocket. He saw it, a tiny, impossibly small void in the established architecture. A space that shouldn't exist, magically coerced into being, shielded by rudimentary dark magic that twisted the castle's natural defensive wards into a malicious mockery. It was tucked away, beneath layers of bedrock and forgotten pipes, accessible only through a series of almost impossibly narrow, shifting crawl spaces that Carrow had likely opened and then sealed behind her. A perfect, horrible cage. Vector was there. Alistair knew it. He could almost feel the cold, damp air, hear the faint drip of water, the low, pained murmur of a voice. The sheer mental effort of piecing together this location, of fighting against Carrow's deliberate obfuscation, left him trembling. His forehead was slick with sweat, his muscles aching as if he'd physically scaled the entire castle. He opened his eyes, the classroom swimming for a moment before snapping into focus. His breath hitched. He had done it. He had pinpointed the impossible location. But the implications. He had found the prison, yes, but how was he to reach it? The path was a nightmare, designed to deter even the most determined rescuer. And Carrow would have wards. Guards. He stood, his legs unsteady. The intellectual triumph was instantly overshadowed by a surge of dread. He had solved the puzzle, but the solution was a gaping maw of danger. He had to go. He had to get Professor Vector out. The thought was no longer a logical deduction, but a burning imperative, born of the raw, undeniable image of her suffering in that desolate, forgotten place. His carefully constructed detachment had finally shattered. He wasn't just mapping a castle anymore. He was stepping into a battlefield, armed only with his mind, and a rapidly growing, terrifying sense of duty. He had to prepare. Immediately. For the first time, Alistair Finch felt the cold, hard weight of a moral choice, and it was heavier than any theorem he had ever wrestled with. He reached for his wand, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The first crack rent through the evening quiet like a thunderclap, shaking the very foundations of the great hall. Alistair, seated at the Ravenclaw table, felt the tremor resonate not just through his chair, but through the elaborate structure of his mind palace. He'd been tracing a newly identified, unstable corridor on the 3rd floor, a potential new route for Death Eater incursions. Now, the entire mental construct shimmered, threatened by external reality. A second, louder explosion followed, this time unmistakably from the grounds, closer to the entrance hall. Shrieks erupted from the younger students, a cacophony that grated against Alistair's tightly wound nerves. The war, a distant threat for so long, had finally breached the ancient walls. "They're here." Luna Lovegood's voice was surprisingly calm beside him, her wide, dreamy eyes fixed on the entrance doors. Alistair, already on his feet, barely registered her words. His mind palace, usually a place of pristine order, was now a storm of flickering data. Red lines, marking known Death Eater patrols, began to spiderweb across his mental map, thicker and more aggressive than ever. "Evacuation protocols," Alistair muttered, his mind already racing through contingency plans. Dumbledore had briefed him weeks ago. Upper years, escort the younger students to the designated safe points. Lower levels restricted. He felt the familiar surge of intellectual arrogance, a sense of grim satisfaction that his preparations were finally being put to the test. This was a puzzle, albeit a deadly one, and he had the solution. But the next blast, directly overhead, shattered that illusion. A section of the ceiling rained dust and small stones onto the enchanted sky. The protective charms Dumbledore had painstakingly reinforced were failing. This wasn't a controlled incursion, it was an assault. "Alistair, look." Luna pointed with an uncanny stillness to the large oak doors of the great hall. They burst inward, splintering with a sound like tearing fabric. Silhouetted against the infernal-lit grounds stood Alecto Carrow, her face a mask of sadistic glee, flanked by a dozen cloaked Death Eaters. Their wands glowed with malevolent curses. "Silence." Carrow's voice, amplified by a sonorous charm, boomed through the hall. "Hogwarts is ours. Any resistance will be met with swift and painful retribution." Panic erupted. Students screamed, scrambling over benches. Alistair felt a jolt of something unfamiliar, not fear for himself, but a cold dread for the sheer, unbridled chaos, the destruction of his meticulously mapped order. His mind palace flickered violently, struggling to keep pace with the influx of new, unpredictable variables. "Luna, come on." He grabbed her wrist, his voice sharp with urgency. The East Wing passage under the tapestries. It leads to a secondary escape route. They join the tide of fleeing students, pushing towards the back of the hall. Spells began to fly, green and red cutting through the air, clashing with the desperate defensive charms of the teachers. Alistair saw Professor Flitwick, tiny but fierce, unleashing a volley of precise charms, while Professor McGonagall transformed a stone gargoyle into a protective shield. His mind palace was now his lifeline. He wasn't just recalling static data, he was simulating. He saw the castle as a living, breathing entity, its stone and magic interwoven. He saw the optimal flow of retreating students, the likely paths of pursuit, the choke points. He felt the mental strain, a searing headache beginning to throb behind his eyes, but he pushed through it. He had to. People were depending on him. Left here, he barked at a group of terrified Hufflepuff first years huddled behind a statue of a former headmaster. The secret staircase will get you to the kitchens. Tell Dobby to secure the house elves' passages. It was a calculated risk, relying on an untested escape route, but the main corridors were too dangerous. He moved through the chaos, Luna a silent, steady presence beside him. Her hand, when it occasionally brushed his, was surprisingly warm. He found himself subconsciously factoring her intuitive nudges into his calculations. Alistair, the airfields, sharp near the Gryffindor common room. Carrow might be sending a division there. He adjusted his mental map, instantly rerouting a group of fleeing Ravenclaws he'd been guiding towards the 7th floor. She's right, he murmured, verifying Luna's sharp feeling with a rapid mental scan of known patrolling patterns Carrow had previously established. If they breach the common room, the students will be trapped. They reached the East Wing. The corridor was less crowded, but the sounds of battle were closer now, echoing from the main staircases. Alistair pulled aside a tapestry depicting a medieval hunt. Behind it, a rough-hewn stone passage, rarely used, snaked into the darkness. This way. Quick. He pushed a small group of students ahead, their faces pale with terror. He felt a sudden, fierce protectiveness, a feeling that clawed at the edges of his logical mind. These weren't variables, they were children. Their wide, frightened eyes looked to him for guidance. The passage curves sharply, he instructed, his voice low but firm. It's unlit. Keep your wands out, but don't cast unless absolutely necessary. We don't want to draw attention. As they navigated the tight, dusty passage, the roar of battle grew more distant, replaced by the thumping of their own heartbeats and the occasional muffled shriek. His mind palace was working overtime, constantly updating, filtering noise, predicting. It showed him phantom Death Eater patrols, highlighting potential ambush points. He could feel the threads of magic that made up the castle, discern where they were weakening, where wards had fallen. Suddenly, a voice, cold and precise, echoed from the passage ahead. Well, what do we have here? Little lost lambs, straying from the flock. Alecto Carrow emerged from the gloom, her wand casually pointed at the leading students. Her smirk was chilling. 2 hulking Death Eaters flanked her, wands raised. Alistair's blood ran cold. He hadn't accounted for Carrow herself being here, on a secondary route. His mind palace, usually infallible, had been too focused on the larger threat, the main invasion points. This was a direct, personal ambush. Alistair. Luna gasped, pulling her own wand, though her hand trembled slightly. Carrow eyes, glinting with malice, settled on Alistair. The little Ravenclaw prodigy. Dumbledore's pet ferret. I've heard about you, mapping my movements, haven't you? Thinking you're so clever. She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. Let's see how clever you are without your little maps, boy. Without his maps? The thought fueled a cold fury in Alistair. His mind palace was him. He took a deep breath, forcing his surging panic down, bringing his mental landscape into sharp focus. He could still see the passage, its intricate connections, its hidden weaknesses. Go back. Alistair yelled at the students, pushing them behind him. Luna, with me. He raised his wand. Foolish boy, Carrow sneered, preparing to cast. But Alistair had a split-second advantage. He didn't need to fight Carrow head-on. He needed to use the castle. His mind palace showed him a hidden pressure plate, part of an ancient forgotten trap for house elves, just beneath Carrow's left foot. "No!" Alistair shouted, not at Carrow, but at a specific point on the ceiling above her. "Luna, reducto." Luna, startled but trusting, cast without question. The powerful blasting charm hit the exact spot Alistair had identified. Not directly at Carrow, but at a structurally weak point in the old stone. Dust and chunks of ceiling rained down. Carrow snarled, shielding herself with a quick protego, but the two Death Eaters behind her were less fortunate. One was buried under rubble, the other stumbled, stunned. Before Carrow could recover, Alistair pointed his wand at the pressure plate. "Carceer." Invisible magical chains shot forth, not to bind Carrow, but to trigger the ancient house elf trap. With a groan of grinding stone, a section of the floor beneath Carrow's feet vanished. She shrieked, falling into the newly revealed pit. It wasn't deep, but it was narrow, trapping her, her wand clattering uselessly to the stone. You little rat." Her curses echoed from the darkness. "Go. Run." Alistair urged the students, pushing them past the stunned Death Eater and the rubble. He glanced back at Carrow, trapped but furious. His mind palace was already calculating her escape, the time it would take, the alternative routes she might use. He had perhaps 2 minutes. "Alistair, we have to go." Luna pulled him, her eyes wide. They sprinted, Luna leading the way now, her hand still holding his. His mind was a maelstrom of calculations, new threats, shifting walls, the constant, sickening feeling of the castle groaning under attack. He had saved those students, protected them. The intellectual satisfaction was immense, but it was overshadowed by a new, powerful current, the visceral relief of seeing their terrified faces transform into grateful astonishment as they fled. He had used his mind palace not just to evade, but to actively thwart. He had confronted Carrow forces, directly and effectively. But the battle was far from over. As they emerged into a wider, smoke-filled corridor, the sounds of fighting were closer than ever, and a new, more sinister rumble shook the castle. It was coming from below, from the very dungeons. His mind palace, already pushed to its limits, flashed a new, horrifying scenario. The lower levels, the very foundations of Hogwarts, were being compromised. And if those fell, the entire castle and everyone in it would follow. The air still thrummed with residual magic, a metallic tang of ozone and burnt stone clinging to Alistair's robes. He guided the last group of students, a terrified clutch of first years, through the labyrinthine passages behind the tapestry of Barnaby the Barmy, emerging into a relatively secure classroom. His mind palace, usually a crystalline structure of pure logic, flickered at the edges, the sheer volume of chaotic input threatening to shatter its pristine order. The effort of not only mapping the shifting castle, but predicting Death Eater movements, often just seconds before they materialized, had left him mentally parched, a dull ache throbbing behind his eyes. He watched the students huddle, their wide, tear-filled eyes scanning the ward-protected windows. Luna sat among them, a strange, ethereal calm radiating from her as she gently stroked the hair of a weeping Hufflepuff girl. Her gaze met Alistair's across the room, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. He registered the empathy in her eyes, the genuine concern, and, for the first time, didn't view it as an emotional distraction, but as a grounding force. The immediate crisis of the siege might have abated, but the castle was still a trap. Carrow forces hadn't retreated, they were consolidating, hunting. A new, urgent task solidified in Alistair's mind, sharper than the throbbing in his skull. Dumbledore's last instruction, whispered just before the headmaster vanished to confront a deeper threat, echoed with chilling clarity. Should the worst befall us, Alistair, ensure the records from my private study are spirited away. They hold the future. Retrieving Dumbledore's personal journals, containing decades of research, forgotten spells, and crucial intelligence on Voldemort's Horcruxes, from a castle teeming with Death Eaters felt less like a puzzle and more like a suicide mission. But the thought of Carrow's grimy hands on that information was a stark, intolerable image. Alistair closed his eyes, forcing his concentration inward. The Mind Palace, a magnificent edifice of memory and logic, began to rebuild itself. He saw the castle, not as it was now, but as it would be in the next 5 minutes, then 10. Blue lines represented known passages, red for Death Eater patrols, flickering green for probable safe routes. He superimposed the known location of Dumbledore's study, then projected potential infiltration points and escape vectors. The familiar sensation of the castle's internal mechanisms clicking into place within his mind was there, but now it was overlaid with the raw urgency of human lives. He saw Luna, still comforting the children, and a sharp, unfamiliar pang pierced through his logical framework. He wasn't just solving a route, he was protecting them. "I need to retrieve something," he announced, his voice raspy, drawing the attention of the few older students and a rattled Professor Flitwick who were also sheltering there. From the headmaster's study. "It's critical." Flitwick, pale but resolute, nodded. "It's a fool's errand, Alistair. They'll be swarming the headmaster's tower." "They expect us to try the obvious ways," Alistair countered, his eyes still closed, the mental map unfurling. "The obvious points of entry, the visible staircases. They won't expect the impossible." Luna approached him, her bare feet silent on the stone floor. "Is it the journals, Alistair?" she asked, her voice soft but knowing. "The ones that hum with so much history?" He opened his eyes. "You knew?" "Of course," she did. "Sometimes the past whispers," she smiled faintly. "I'll come with you. 2 sets of eyes are better than 1, even if only one can see the paths the Nargles leave behind." Alistair almost protested. Luna was hardly a strategic asset in a physical confrontation, but the thought of her unique intuition, her ability to perceive things beyond the obvious, gave him pause. More importantly, he found he didn't want to leave her behind. The realization struck him with the force of a stunner. It wasn't just about the mission, it was about keeping her safe, keeping them safe. The shift was subtle, profound. He was no longer just processing data, he was caring for the variables. "Very well," he conceded, the words feeling surprisingly easy. "But you must follow my instructions precisely." They moved like ghosts through the besieged castle. The Mind Palace was an oppressive weight, each calculation a drain. He projected their movements, not just 2 steps ahead, but 50, anticipating which gargoyle might animate, which portrait might betray them, which loose flagstone might hide a tripwire. "Left, here," he whispered, pulling Luna sharply into a shadowy alcove moments before a Death Eater patrol, led by a hulking figure Alistair identified as Travers, stomped past. The clanking of their boots echoed ominously. Alistair's heart hammered, a purely biological response he usually dismissed as an inefficient distraction. Now it was a reminder of the fragility of life, of their lives. They traversed forgotten passages behind tapestries reeking of dust and disuse, climbed through disused chimney flues, and even navigated a rarely known sublevel beneath the dungeons that sometimes connected to the kitchens. The entire castle felt alive, groaning under the strain of dark magic and battle, its ancient stones shivering. Rubble blocked paths he had meticulously mapped, forcing real-time recalculations. Each new obstruction, each unexpected patrol, sent a jolt of mental pain through him. "Mind Palace, adjusting," he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead as he visualized the shifting architecture, the new blockages, the altered patrol routes. He could feel Carrow magic, a cold, predatory presence, tightening its grip on the castle, trying to impose its own twisted order. They reached the antechamber to Dumbledore's study. The stone gargoyle, usually a guardian, lay smashed to pieces, its vacant eyes staring up at them. The spiral staircase was scorched, clearly a recent battlefield. The door to the study, however, remained intact, albeit scarred. "Expect resistance inside," Alistair breathed, drawing his wand. He didn't usually engage in direct combat, preferring strategy. But he wouldn't send Luna into danger alone. "I brought something," Luna said, pulling a pouch from her pocket. From it, she withdrew a handful of what looked like shriveled, purple pods. "Didn't he? Just in case." Her foresight, seemingly whimsical, was practical. Alistair nodded, a flicker of gratitude cutting through his fatigue. He concentrated, envisioning the layout of the study, the likely positions of any intruders. Two inside, he whispered, near the desk, and another, hidden by the bookshelf, just left of the entrance. He kicked the door open, a silent stupefy already on his lips, aiming for the hidden Death Eater. The spell shot true. The Death Eater, caught off guard, crumpled without a sound. The two others by the desk, a burly man with a hooked nose and a thin woman with a sneer, reacted instantly. They were Death Eaters, not mere opportunists. One flung a powerful blasting curse, the other a flurry of dark jinxes. Alistair didn't dodge. He predicted. He saw the trajectory of the blasting curse, the arc of the jinxes, and anticipated the safest zone. He threw himself and Luna to the floor, the curses tearing through the air where they had stood a split second before. Expelliarmus! Alistair roared, his aim surprisingly accurate, disarming the woman. Before the man could retaliate, Luna, with an almost otherworldly grace, threw one of her dittany pods. It didn't explode, but burst open in a cloud of thick, cloying purple smoke. The Death Eater choked, his eyes watering, disoriented. The desk! Alistair yelled, scrambling up, already moving. His mind palace showed him the hidden compartment, the one only Dumbledore and a select few knew. He ripped open the false bottom of a drawer, revealing a stack of leather-bound journals, scrolls, and a curious, ornate silver locket. He scooped them all into a satchel he pulled from his robes. They'll be here any second, he warned. Carrow grip on the castle meant reinforcements would arrive swiftly. Another exit? Luna asked, already peering at the wall behind the desk. No, a decoy, Alistair said, a grim smile touching his lips. He flung a confringo at the far wall, creating a loud, attention-grabbing blast. Then, turning to the actual exit, he saw it. A faint shimmer, almost imperceptible. He had catalogued it years ago, a rarely used, almost mythical passage known only to the most ancient portraits, leading into the upper reaches of the astronomy tower, then to a precarious, seldom used gargoyle walkway on the outside of the castle. It was a perilous, exposed route, but impossible to predict. This way, he urged, grabbing Luna's arm. They scrambled through the shimmering opening, which sealed behind them as Death Eaters burst through the main study door, wands blazing at the decoy blast. The climb through the astronomy tower was harrowing. Loose masonry, the roar of the wind, the dizzying height. Alistair's mind palace was stretched to its absolute limit, providing mental handholds, showing him which ancient stones would bear their weight, which would crumble into the abyss. He wasn't just mapping the physical space, he was anticipating the psychological terror, gauging Luna's endurance, pushing his own. He looked at Luna, her eyes wide but resolute, her hands scraped but steady. He saw not just a quirky classmate, but a courageous ally whose quiet strength had been invaluable. It wasn't about her tactical prowess, but her unwavering belief, her empathy, which had somehow bolstered his own resolve. He realized, with a clarity that surpassed any logical deduction, that he hadn't just been protecting the information or following an order. He had been protecting her. And in doing so, he had protected a part of himself he hadn't known was vulnerable. They emerged onto the narrow, windswept gargoyle path, high above the castle grounds. The forbidden forest stretched out below them, a dark, welcoming haven. A thin, pale sliver of moon hung in the sky, illuminating their precarious perch. They won't expect this, Alistair gasped, clutching the satchel to his chest. His lungs burned, his muscles screamed in protest, but a surge of triumph, raw and unfamiliar, coursed through him. He had done it. They had done it. No, they won't, Luna agreed, her voice barely audible above the wind, but carrying a note of profound satisfaction. She leaned against the cold stone, taking in the panoramic view, as if she were simply admiring a particularly unusual cloud formation. Alistair looked back at the castle, a silhouette of defiance against the twilight sky. It was no longer just a puzzle to be solved, a grand blueprint in his mind. It was home, it was threatened, and he was no longer a detached observer. He was a part of it, irrevocably tied to its fate and the fates of those within its walls. His mind, exhausted but triumphant, began to process the implications. He had navigated the most dangerous of passages, outwitted Death Eaters, and secured information vital to the war effort, all while prioritizing the safety of his companion above cold, hard logic. He hadn't just used his intellect, he had integrated it with something deeper, something warmer. Alistair Finch, the architect of secrets, had built a new wing in his mind palace tonight. One dedicated not just to logic and strategy, but to courage, loyalty, and the profound, beautiful chaos of human connection. The future of the Order, the future of Hogwarts, now rested on more than just maps. It rested on him. And he was ready. As the first faint streaks of dawn touched the horizon, casting the castle in a ghostly glow, Alistair knew his journey was far from over. Dumbledore's journals were safe, but Dumbledore was gone. The war would escalate, and Hogwarts would face even darker days. But he was no longer just a brilliant mind. He was a protector, an indispensable asset, and for the first time in his life, he felt truly, terrifyingly, profoundly connected. The puzzles he would face now were not just of stone and shadow, but of heart and sacrifice. And he would solve them, not just with his mind, but with everything he was becoming.